Welcome to Jewish Inspirational Stories. We're reading from the book Living Emunah by Rabbi Asher. Reliance on Hashem produces blessings. The more a person relies on Hashem and looks to him for his security, the more blessings he will receive. As we noted, David HaMelech described himself as like a suckling infant upon his mother. He was entirely dependent on Hashem, and just as a nursing baby is entirely dependent on his mother. One of the interesting features of nursing is that the milk supply is dependent upon the child. As long as the infant is interested in nursing, the mother's body produces milk. But once he is no longer interested in his mother's milk, it ceases to be available. The same is true of our reliance on Hashem. The more we place our trust in Hashem, the greater the supply of blessings there will be. It is told that the Baal Shem Tov stayed in the home of a man named Shalom during his travels, and the man was thrilled and honored to host such a distinguished rabbi. Throughout his stay, the Baal Shem Tov told stories and taught Torah to members of his household, and Shalom was delighted. Finally, after several days, the rabbi informed his host that he must leave. The host pleaded with him to stay, but the Baal Shem Tov insisted that he must leave to raise money for his charitable organization. "How much do you expect to raise in a day?" Shalom asked. 1,000 rubles. The Baal Shem Tov replied. The man offered to donate 1,000 rubles so that the Baal Shem Tov would remain another day, and the rabbi agreed. The next day, the Baal Shem Tov again prepared to leave, but the man once again insisted that he stay, offering him more money. This continued for several days until Shalom's funds were nearly depleted. Unwilling to allow the great rabbi to leave, Shalom sold the precious gems that he had relied on as his backup source of money. He sold the gems for 4,000 rubles, and the Baal Shem Tov was his guest for another 4 days. At last, the Baal Shem Tov bid Shalom farewell and left. Afterwards, Shalom considered his situation and was stunned. He was left with no money and a large family to care for. How would he feed his family? Shalom turned to Hashem and said, "Hashem, I need you." Sure enough, that night a few drunkards came by, knowing that Shalom sold top quality liquor, desperately seeking a way to indulge their addiction. They asked Shalom for some whiskey. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I have no merchandise to sell you." But the drunkards persisted, explaining that his was the best whiskey available, and they desperately wanted it. And even if he had run out, they were willing to purchase his empty barrels so that they could pour water into them, in which would absorb the flavor of the whiskey, and he agreed. They gave him numerous gold coins in exchange for empty barrels. A few years later, the Baal Shem Tov was again traveling through that region, and he came to Shalom's home in order to visit his former host. He knocked on the door, and the person who opened the door was not Shalom. It turned out that Shalom had moved to the wealthier part of town. The rabbi found out where he lived, and he went to his home. He saw that Shalom now lived in a large palace with a butler and servants. Shalom ran to greet the rabbi, expressed how honored he felt to once again have hosted the great sage. However, he added, There's one thing that it's been bothering me over the last few years. How could you have left me with no money? How did you take all that money, knowing that I would have nothing left? And I have a large family." The Baal Shem Tov explained, "I saw in the heavens that you were destined to attain great wealth, but the pipelines of blessing were blocked because you placed your trust in those precious gems. Once I saw that you were prepared to give away those gems and place your trust in Hashem, I knew that the blessing would soon start pouring in. It is our trust and confidence in Hashem that generates the blessings, just as a nursing infant causes the milk to be plentiful." Thanks, and we'll continue tomorrow.